So custom content migrations to Drupal 8. So here's the plan. If you are hoping this is a technical session, you're in luck, that's the second half. If you're hoping this is an overview session, you're in luck, that's the first half. If you want both, then stick around for the whole thing. Yeah, so this is me. The only thing I'll mention here, because I've talked enough this weekend, is I was lucky enough to be one of the core contributors, and I actually think I'm still technically a core maintainer for the Migrate system. I've been kind of dormant lately, other than working on some documentation for it, but they refuse to take me off the maintainers list in hopes that I will find more time. It's almost a running joke at this point. So migration is kind of like one of my things. I dig migrations. I kind of like it's like the puzzle for me, right? You got a mess over here, and you've got to untangle this mess and end up with something with super solid information architecture in Drupal at the end. So I like that. I'm providing the client likes to talk to me and and help me figure that out. So yeah. Okay, so let's just talk about migration real quick. This is the overview portion. I probably should stay near the microphone, right? Is there a microphone here?
I can hear you.
Oh, the audio's right there. Okay. Well, for the recording. All right, so, notice the word Drupal is not on this slide, because it doesn't matter for Drupal yet. You have a source, where's the data coming from? It could be a database, could be a CSV file, could be an Excel file, could be a pile of XML documents, could be a pile of HTML documents, could be an Oracle database, who knows. You have a destination. We're at Drupalcamp, so our destination is generally going to be a Drupal site. And there's a process, and I'm going to call it the pipeline, to go from the source to the destination. So think of this as your data store, your Drupal 8 data store, and the process is the code that's actually running it. So if we start at the endpoints, you're going to have some code that knows how to get stuff out of the source, right? So you have to have some mechanism that knows how to talk to a database, or knows how to parse an XML file, or knows how to parse a CSV file. So you've got some code there that knows how to get stuff. On the other end, you're going to have some code that knows how to set stuff. So you're going to have some code that knows how to take some data and create a Drupal node. Take some data, create a Drupal term. Take some data, create a Drupal user. All right? So this knows how to get, that knows how to set. Everything in the middle, we break into two big, buckets. Number one is mapping. So we got some data. The mapping dictates where does that data end up ultimately. And then we've got this, text string out of the source. The mapping tells us, oh, well, that's a title for a node in the destination. So the mapping, if you think about these as, we'll simplify things greatly for a second. Think about these things as two spreadsheets. The mapping basically says the data from cell B14 needs to be mapped to C27 in the destination. So it's just defining where that data is going. And then the processing is the part where that's where we can actually use our brains and really help the client out. I actually prefer the data massaging, fixing all the things that are wrong with the data, as it traverses through the pipeline. This is where when you're pulling a body field out of the source, and that body field has an embedded image in it, and that image has a path that makes sense for where it originally lived, but when you move it into a Drupal site, you want that path to be somewhere in the files directory. Well, you can set up, inside of your processing step, you can do a regex or something that says, well, when you see an image tag, and the file path looks like this, change it to this. And that kind of massages it on its way over. So, if you understand this, then you understand the Drupal 8 migrate system. And we're done, so let's go have lollipops or something. But seriously, this is how it works. In Drupal 8, this is called a source plugin, a destination plugin. This is in configuration, which here's the coolest part about the Drupal 8 migrate system. It's not PHP, it's YAML. Mapping is defined in a YAML file. It's awesome. It's awesome. Processing, if it's simple-ish processing, Drupal 8 ships with a bunch of data massagers already. You don't have to write them. You just have to kind of combine this into the mapping step and say, hey, migrate system, when you get that piece of data from here, map it to here, but as you do that, multiply it by 4, or whatever the massaging needs to be. If you need to do some custom massaging, well, that's where you have to write some PHP. So we call these processing plugins. Go figure. And there's, like I said, there's a bunch baked into Drupal 8 core. You can make your own. It's a plugin in Drupal 8, so you basically extend a class. If we have time, I recently found what I think is an easier way to write these than writing a plugin. Plugins are pretty easy to write, so I'm always looking for the easiest possible solution. So remind me later if I don't get to it, I'll talk about that. Okay, so in reality, migration, more often looks like this, because we're usually migrating more than one thing. Sometimes it looks like this. And sometimes this migration can be dependent on that migration. What's a perfect example of that? Well, if you're migrating nodes, nodes all have authors. If you want to retain that relationship between a node and its author, you need to migrate the authors, which are users, before you migrate the nodes. So we can build up these very complex dependencies. Drupal core actually has built in, if you're just migrating from and I'm going to say a simple D6 site, and just for the sake of argument, let's say, which doesn't happen or never did happen ever in the history of the world, nobody ever launched a D6 site with any contributed modules. Let's just say there was one out there. Well, other than I'll include CCK and link and stuff like that. But out of the box, if you just have a very simple brochure D6 site and you want to migrate that to D8, you can do that with Drupal 8 out of the box. And if you just have the 2 default content types and 1 default vocabulary, it's over 60 migrations you have to run. Why so many? Well, because unlike migration or the migrate module for D7, the migrate module for D8 does more than migrate content. It also migrates configuration, which is pretty cool. Which means if you have a custom content type in D6, there's a migration here for migrating your fields and your field widgets and your field displays and everything there is about the information architecture of that content type. So these migrations tend to multiply. I think there's 7. Did I have that right? No. 5 maybe. I think for every field you add, there's actually 5 migrations that need to be run if you're going to migrate the structure over. It's like the widget, form display, the field base. I have to go back and look what they are. So if you're migrating a D6 site that has 50 fields, this number goes way up. And obviously, if you're going to migrate a node that has 13 fields, then that node is going to be dependent on all of those fields. So these dependencies can be very difficult. But we're not going to talk about that. We're going to keep things simple. What I'm going to focus on, and what most people do, and what I recommend to virtually all my clients, is when you're thinking about migrating into D8, you do what I call, or most people call, a migrate and rebuild. We don't actually migrate your structure. Because when you build, or not you, well maybe you, when the D6 site or D7 site was built, that's on the order of years ago. Organizations change, requirements change. The information architecture of that D6 site probably could use some updating. So if you just run the D8 core migration blindly, you're taking all of that old structure and bringing it into D8. Mm-hmm. And that's probably less than ideal. You want to kind of update that structure. So you want to rebuild your structure and then migrate your old content into your new structure. That's normally what clients want. So they can take advantage of all the cool stuff in D8 and not be stuck with this old information architecture with these 7 things that make everybody absolutely mental. So we're really going to focus on the custom content migrations. So keep this in mind. Because honestly, if you break it down and you can understand this pipeline, then everything else I'll show you, and 90% of what you need to know about migration is kind of baked into this. And just for the record, you don't have to take pictures because all of this is online for you. And actually, the demo I'm going to do is written up as a blog post as well. And the code for the demo is on GitHub. So everything I'm going to show you, you guys have access to, and I'll give you the link at the end.
Question?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk about any of the changes that are coming in 8.3?
No.
Yeah.
Nope, sorry. Sorry. All right, so let's talk about the different ways that you can migrate content into D8. So I've talked ahead of my slides. So I've broken them up into four buckets, or four types of migration. House of Pain, the whole enchilada, migration by subtraction, and then migration satisfaction, which is, guess which one we're going to like. So House of Pain is basically manually migrating content. And I bring this up because there's a lot of times people approach a migration project where they feel, oh gosh, I have to migrate content, I have to learn the migration system. Well, that can take time. It would take developer time to figure out how to do that, to do it right, to test it. And if one of the milestones along that path is to do a content audit, that can add even more time to it. So I've actually recommended for clients who have, content on the order of, usually under 200, things, users plus nodes type of thing, to consider actually just a manual migration. Because that can actually save money and save time, especially if there's a content audit and content updates involved. For this, we don't really have much to do other than, maybe kind of helping set up the process to do this. And it's exactly what you think it is. It's, taking the content off the old site, having someone edit it, and recreating nodes on the new site. It can actually save a bunch of time. People have come to hire me to, migrate 100 nodes, and I'm like, it's going to cost you a lot more than if I show that person over there how to do it. They could probably do it in 2 days, but their hourly rate is probably a lot less than my hourly rate. So, and then, when there's a content audit involved, I do all the migration, and then someone still has to go into the D8 site and go through all the content. So there are times where manually migrating content makes sense. So there we go. So the whole enchilada is the thing that's built into Drupal 8 core. There is a way to enable the migrate UI module, migrate Drupal UI, or migrate UI. I always forget the names of these modules. I really should know them at some point. But there's a UI module built into Drupal core. You enable it, and I'll show you the page in a couple minutes. Actually, is it the next? Yeah. No. I have a screenshot somewhere here, but it's like the old upgrade path, where you point to your old site, give it the database credentials for the D6 site, give it the path to the files directory for the D6 site, hit a button, and it will tell you, okay, well, here's everything I know about on the old site. Now here's all the migration plugins that are installed here that can get data from there. And we cover in core, we cover anything in Drupal 6 out of the box, plus CCK, plus a bunch of field types. So it's fairly robust for Drupal 6. And you hit a button, and it just does it. And that's what brings over your old structure and all your old content. And it mostly works. There are some things we can't, the migration system can't guess, but your content types and content will be there. Your theme won't be there because that's, not a thing. But, the big con here is it doesn't allow for refactoring. So if you've got obsolete, inefficient information architecture in D6, you've still got it in D8. And that sucks. So I don't like that at least. And only modules with migration classes are supported. Meaning if you're just going to get core D6 to core D8, you're probably in good shape. If your core D6 site has 50 modules, and 20 of them have their own storage involved, something like panels, where that, you define panels and it stores the panels configuration in there. Until panels for D8 ships with its own migration classes, that panel configuration will not migrate over. So it's up to module maintainers to include their own migration classes. A good example is the geofield module for D8. Ships with migration classes. So you can take geofield, which is a contributor module. It's not supported by core. But if you have geofield in D7 and you want to migrate content to D8, the geofield maintainers have done a great job of building a migration class that's part of their module, and that will just work. And you can leverage that in custom content migrations. So migration by subtraction is an interesting one, which I know some people use, and I've experimented with it, and I've decided I don't like it a whole lot. So what it is it's very similar to what I just showed you, the core upgrade, where you point at the old site and you just migrate everything. What migration by subtraction allows you to do is it allows you to point at the old site and tell the migrate system to go ahead and create all of those migrations, all 60 plus of them, or however many they're going to be. But don't actually run them. Just configure them for me, and then stop. And then I'm going to go in, and I'm going to mess with them. I might delete a few of them, I might tweak a few of them, and then when I'm done, I'll say run the migrations. So what are the pros of that one? Well, you do get, it's not that hard to do. There's drush commands to, basically create all those things. And it allows for, I'm going to say, limited customization. And it's really, technically it allows for unlimited customization. But once you start really customizing it, I don't know how anybody does not get into dependency hell. Because once you start removing migrations, and another migration is dependent on it, then you have to put that one back, and then it becomes like a shell game of trying to get the right migrations in there and taking out the ones you don't want. And then if you start changing some of those, it becomes very painful very quickly.
So you're actually removing full migrations instead of,
Like you could remove all the migrations related to some field that you don't need anymore.
Yeah.
But then because all of these migrations were generated by Drupal or by the migrate system, that node migration is going to be dependent on those fields. So you're going to have to go in and modify that node migration to remove that dependency.
So it's
a lot of trial and error.
Yeah, it set the dependencies up originally correct. So
and I'll show you how that's done.
Yeah, does it show you the string of maybe dependent
It shows each configuration knows what it's dependent on.
Yeah. So.
But it's kind of like if you what's a good example? Okay. Most things have multiple dependencies. Like this thing's dependent on that, this thing's dependent on that, this thing's dependent on that. And if you remove this thing down here, then all of these migrations are going to go, can't run, can't run, can't run. So there's no one place you can go and say, show me the tree, at least as far as I know, show me the tree of everything that's dependent on this one way down here.
Yeah.
That's where the problem really lies. So it's cool, this one's cool if you want the core as the everything migration with just a few changes. But there's some magic line, depending on your site, where if you cross that, it just becomes, for me, I'll just say for me, it just becomes painful. And just not, I feel like I'm losing control of what's happening. Okay. So this is why I've kind of, even though I contribute to the core migration system, I tend to not run the full migrations, for real, for any clients. I tend to write custom migrations for everything. And really, my goal for you guys is for when you leave here to not necessarily know how to run these custom migrations immediately, but just understand that, that's not nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. That's my goal. If I can get you there, just a little bit of confidence, then that's a win. Because it's honestly, when I show you all this stuff, it's not as bad as you think it is. Okay, so this is just a custom migration, and this is exactly what you think it is. It is building up a migrations one at a time. Exactly the way you want it, enabling exactly the configurations that you want, enabling you to have a brand new, robust, solid, built for the future information architecture in Drupal 8, and leave all of that Drupal 6 pain and things that are obsolete or built wrong in the first place behind. That's the goal. That's the goal. So the cons are, well, you gotta learn. You gotta learn something new. So that's a big con. Okay. Yeah, so those are our 4 again. Yeah, all right. So I'm gonna. Yeah, I gotta rearrange the slides because I always talk through. Like I talked about all this stuff already. So the whole enchilada. Yeah, so it's called the Migrate Drupal UI module. This is the one where you're taking everything all at once, and really it's just core. These modules are all in core. You enable them, and then you go to this page, and literally this is the core upgrade. This is what's in Drupal 8 core. You point to your D6 site, the database. You point to the files directory. You review the upgrade, and that will basically show you all the migrations it can do for you, and all the stuff it can't do for you, which are basically things from contributed modules. And then you hit a button, and you walk away, and it happens. The one really nice thing, though, about this, that's a huge improvement over previous core upgrades, is the source database is unmodified. So if you remember, if you're upgrading a D6 site to D7 in the past, you would actually take your D6 database and take the D7 code base and attach them, and then run the core upgrade path. And the D7 upgrade path basically went in the database and put it in a blender and turned it into a Drupal 7 database. With this, now you have two databases. You have your D6 database, your D8 database, and this is basically just running all of those 60 migrations from one to the other. The D6 database can honestly be in read-only mode. So the nice thing about this is you could, I wouldn't recommend this, but you could test this against a live database, a live Drupal 6 site. Don't do that though. Do it off of, make a copy of the database before you do it, but you could do that.
Sorry, I have one question. You keep saying D6. All this applies to D7?
Yes, D7 as well.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, I'm saying D6 because literally 80% of our work was getting D6 to work.
Right.
And then once we got D6 to work, D7 was easy for us.
D7 is a piece of cake.
Well, because we had done, because of the way it's all object-oriented code, we had done 80% of the work.
Right.
So, yeah.
So, I actually have a client who was on let's just call it a sloppy D6, and upgraded to D7, and then we inherited that mess. Run into any problems where the D6 to D7 was sloppy, they caused problems then going to D8?
I think if you try and do this method, you probably would. Just to be, if I was a betting man.
That's what I want to hear.
Yeah. I would say you probably hit.
That's what I was expecting.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so that runs, so you do this, that runs all 60, and and you're done. Addition by subtraction, that involves a contrib module, Migrate Plus, as well as the core modules. This is your magic drush command that you run that basically creates all of those configurations but does not run them. So it's basically you're running the migrate upgrade and saying configure everything. I'm hiding some details here where you specify the source database and stuff, but this is the main part of the command. So you're basically saying, okay, drush, run migrate upgrade. I'm pointing at my D6 site, but don't run it, just create those configurations only. That way I can come in, I can export those configurations, stick them in a custom module, not unlike what I'm going to show you in a few minutes. And then here's this is where you go and start deleting migrations at your own risk and modifying things before you run it. And visually, I envision it like this, where originally you had all 60 of them, you've removed a bunch of them, you've tweaked that one, some processing for this migration, you tweak processing for that migration, and now you want to run the rest of them. I hope that works. I don't think, and again, I've never had to do it for real for a client. We've experimented. I end up in dependency hell every single time. Because normally, if I'm not doing a full upgrade path, then maybe I have a blind spot when it comes to it. But if I'm not doing the full upgrade path, I want to change information architecture. I want to change fields, and that thing should not be there. It should be there. This relationship should not be from there to there. It should be from that's kind of the way I think about these things. So that for me will lead to dependency hell pretty darn fast. I actually know other migrators who use it. But I believe that they tend to keep most of those 60 migrations and are just and tweak that mapping. I'm going to massage this thing a little bit more and stuff like that. Okay, so migration satisfaction. This is, we're closing to the end of the overview. In a minute, we're going to be into the code part of this. And this really should, this goes for 8.2 as well, but everything I'm saying works for 8.1. So migration satisfaction, we want the core stuff, and migrate tools, which gives us our drush commands, very similar to D7. Drush migrate import, drush migrate rollback, drush migrate status. Anybody use migrate in D7? Okay, so y'all know those three commands. They're not in core, they're in migrate tools. Migrate plus, what that gives us some classes that we can extend for our own custom migrations. And you'll see that in a minute. So I have a feeling at some point there'll be portions of this which make their way into core as well. Okay, so how do you do it? Well, first you build your Drupal 8 site. You build out your information architecture in your D8 site. You don't have to build out your views, you don't have to build out your theme, but you need to know what the destination looks like. So for me, this normally means I design it with the client, I build it out, we do some prototyping, we make sure it works for them, and we can kind of hit that milestone where information architecture is done. 99% done. Because if we are building migration and we're heading to a moving target, we all know what happens there. That's time and money right there. So we built out our new information architecture, and ideally, in a perfect world, we are allowed to pay no attention to the old site. Just build out that IA, the best way we can. And then afterwards, now go back and look at the IA in the old site and map that to the information architecture on the new site. Now, I said ideally because, for budgetary or time reasons, you might have to, maybe you don't get to blue sky it. Maybe you have to be stuck with some things that you have to re-architect the same way here while changing other things. But ideally, you want to build this the right way. You want to build this using all the right entities, all the right fields, and not thinking at all about your old site. And then figure out, well, how do all the things in my old site map to the things in my new site? And, this is not necessarily a technical, programming job. This is more like a sit down with your client, your project manager, whoever, or even the content folks, and figure that out. But once you have that, and a lot of times that's done in a spreadsheet. I actually prefer to use whiteboards or pieces of paper with Sharpies to do that. Then we do our job. Then we build our custom migrations. Then we run our custom migrations, and we're happy. And this is the way I think of them here. It's custom. And while it's, everything's red, and it seems like, well, we have to write PHP for this, we have to write, no. Because Drupal core migrate gives us a bunch of source plugins. Drupal core migrate knows how to talk to a D6 database and knows how to talk to a D7 database. What does that mean? That means we have a source plugin that's built into Drupal core that knows how to extract a node and all of its data out of a source D6 database and return it to the getter. We also have a source plugin that knows how to get a D7 term or a D6 user, or these things know the right SQL to talk to the D6 or D7 database to extract data. If you go into contrib, there's a migrate source CSV module, which is really nothing more than a source plugin. It's a getter that knows how to talk to CSV files. It knows how to extract data from a CSV file and delimit it by a comma or semicomma, colon, or whatever it is. There is, I don't know, I think that there might be in beta. There's actually one of these that knows how to talk to WordPress sites. There is or will be one of these that knows how to talk to XML files and use XPath to extract all the data. So these are called source plugins. Core, the migrate module Drupal core gives you all of these. It gives you all of your destinations. So really, when you're writing custom migration, what we're focused on is the mapping and the processing. So, yes, back there, and then Hector.
Question, how do you handle a situation where you may have content that relies on a specific module? Like, for example, event calendar.
Right.
It's not on D8. How do I handle it?
Well, there's two ways of handling it. Number one, you contact the maintainer and find out what their plans are for supporting migrate and D8 in their module. Ideally, they should be providing classes at some point. So that's first. That'd be my first step. Hit their issue queue, contact them, see what the situation is there. My second step, if there's no plans or they don't have the bandwidth or whatever, my second step would be probably to write their source plugin, because you're going to need it, and then just contribute it to them as a patch. The third option is if you've got requirements that aren't super generalized, or put it the other way, if your requirements are very specific, then just write a custom migration. So, ultimately, these source plugins are not a whole lot more than a SQL query. Right? So if it's an event calendar, you have to know how to write a query against a D6 database to get the data that module stores in the database, whether it's a variable table or a table created by the module. So, Hector, I'm sorry, yes.
Do you have any advice on doing incremental migrations, and also about how preserving node IDs is maybe related to that or not?
Yeah, so you can actually, and I've done it for clients. It works a lot like D7, where it will. There's a map table. So once you migrate content, there's a map table that says node 35 in D6 is now node 112 in D8. So that map table stays there, and then if you do a migration, and then a month later you do that migration again, it will only migrate new ones that haven't been migrated already. There is some high water support as well, and the high water support helps if that node 12 in the D6 site has been updated, and then you run the migration. It will look at this what's called a high water value to see if anything's changed and re-migrate it. I haven't needed to use that much, so I don't know the specifics about if it just works out of the box or what you have to do with it, but I know it's there. Did that answer your question? Okay, very good. Okay, so let's do a live demo. Here's what I've done and what I'm going to do. I've got a real Drupal 6 site on my local. It's actually the old DrupalEasy.com site on Drupal 6. It's on my local. I have a just about brand new Drupal, actually it is a brand new Drupal 8 site on my local as well. I'm using Acquia Dev Desktop, so I'm trying to do lowest common denominator for all this stuff. Some tweaks, basically I created a content type. My goal here is I'm going to move an audio content type, which I called it on D6, into a new podcast content type in D8. So I've created my information architecture on D8. I've created my podcast content type. On D6, I had a field embed, which held the URL to the podcast MP3 file. On D8, I have a new link field, and I've changed the name of it to field audio URL. So I'm changing field names as well. On D6, I'm a big Markdown guy, so on D6, I have the Markdown module enabled and a custom Markdown filter on D6. So we're actually going to recreate that text format on D8. The Markdown module already is up and running on D8. So we're going to, this is kind of redundant, but I'm going to build the site and configure it with this stuff. I've also added some contrib modules, which I'll tell you about. we're going to create the custom migrations. This is the cooking show because it's already created, but I'm going to go through it line by line with you. It's not that long. But I'm going to show you the entire migration. And that's what's on GitHub. And then I'm going to run the custom migration using our old friends drush migrate import, drush migrate rollback, drush migrate status. And the end result is going to be all the podcast content from the D6 site and the D8 site. Yeah, so it's a 8.2. Whatever the latest is, I can't keep track. 6, 5, 6, okay. Standard install profile. I've enabled admin toolbar, markdown, libraries, which is a dependency of markdown, as well as migrate tools and migrate plus. So those are all of the contrib modules. I'm going to configure the new text format. Actually, I may have already done that. Oh, look. I've created the new content type. Oh, actually, I haven't done that. So I can actually create that stuff. That's all right. So I'm going to do all that stuff, and just keep this in mind. Because seriously, when we look at the migration configuration, we are going to see where I specify which source plugin to use. We are going to see where I specify which destination plugin I use. We are going to see each of the mappings, and we're going to see a couple little processors in there. Or massagers, as I call them. Okay, so there's the URL for all the code. Blog post with this entire thing is also on Drupalease.com. D8 migrate should be easy to find. And I believe there's a link to the code from there as well. So, okay, how are we on time? We are not good. Okay, that's all right. We're gonna go. All right, so here's the local D6 site. All right, so we migrated it like over a year ago. So you can see there's a podcast there and podcast there. So this is all local. It's in Dev Desktop. All right, so here's my new D8 site. So let me go, let's see if I can do this real quick. I'm going to create a new text format. This is our markdown. Markdown. Don't want a text editor. So I have my notes right here on what to do. Markdown, convert line breaks, correct faulty. So we need markdown, convert line breaks, correct faulty. Make it a little bit bigger in that order. All right, so there's our text format. Markdown's all installed and everything. So that's good. So we can go create a new content type. And this is just going to be podcast. So here's where I get to build my fresh, proper information architecture. And we're going to add a field of type link. And it's going to be called audio URLs. Save and continue. I always forget if I want unlimited. Okay. So we're going to make this multi-valued. And we do not want the link text, so we're just going to disable the link text, so all we have to worry about is the URL field. I think that's... yes, okay. So you can imagine this would be a much bigger job for anything but a quick demo. Okay, so let's look at the code then. And actually I'm going to add... This all looks suddenly very small, doesn't it? We'll make this bigger. I think when Kevin changed the resolution, that was an issue. And I can make this part bigger as well. Appearance. No, golly, where is it? Editor defaults? Well, here, no, I'll just zoom. Okay, so this is the sum total of the custom module I wrote. It has a YAML info.yaml file, which all modules need to have. That's like the old .info file. And it has a config/install/ these two files. So the way these modules work is migrations are mostly just configuration. So when you want to create a custom migration, you create your configuration. And this DE6 audio one, this is our migration right here. So this is what has our mapping and our processing into it. The way this works is when we enable this module, or any module, anything that's in the config/install directory gets pulled into the active configuration on your Drupal site. So the tricky thing about this is, this only happens once. This only happens when you enable the module for the first time. So when you're working on these migrations, and you write this for the first time, enable it, and then say, oh, there's a bug, and then you go into this file and tweak it and rerun it, nothing's going to change. Because the original configuration has been sucked in when you first enabled it, and any changes you make in here, Drupal's not going to see. So you can, the slow way of doing it is disabling the module, re-enabling the module, and re-sucking it all in. I will show you later on, there's a great drush command called drush config-edit, where you can, what that allows you to do is to edit the active configuration. So you basically just say drush config-edit migrate plus.migration.de6 audio, and it will open up in a text editor for you basically the migration YAML. And then you modify it there, and then when you exit out of the text editor, it sucks that into the active configuration. The downside of that is this file does not get updated. So you're changing your active configuration, but you have to remember to circle back and update your file as well. So it's a little bit wonky that way, but believe me, maybe 6 hours of my time before I realized why my stuff wasn't working. So hopefully I just saved you 6 hours. That's 6 hours I'm not getting back. Okay, so let's look at these. So here's our .info file. Standard module, not a whole lot going on. There's some dependencies basically saying when this module gets enabled, these modules better be enabled as well. So that's not specific to migration there. Migrate Plus provides the idea of a migration group. And even if I only have one migration, I always create a migration group. The idea behind a migration group is, I'm going to be done. We're going to get done in 5 minutes. It's going to be awesome. The idea behind a migration group is migration groups can share configuration. So if I have 13 configurations and they're all pulling from the same database, I don't have to put the database information in all 13 migrations. I can put it in one place. And as long as the migration is part of this group, it has access to this. So this is the key for my source database. And all this really is in my settings.php file, I've got the database configuration information for my D8 database, but I also have database configuration connection information for my D6 database. And normally, for the one database for your Drupal site, it looks like, array, default, and then all that. But for the source database, it says array, default, legacy. And I can show you the settings.php file. I don't want to do it now because I want to finish, but catch me later and I'll show you my settings.php. Just know that this legacy is a word. This could be Fred. It just has to match what's in my settings file. But this points to the source database. All right, so here's the money right here. So here is our migration. So these lines are basically just metadata. Unique identifier, label, identifying this as Drupal 6. The deriver here is basically where does this plugin derive from? And you don't have to type this out. I'm going to talk about how do you start this whole process, because you don't open up a blank text editor and start typing. It's easier than that. I'll get to that in a minute. But so here's the metadata, and this basically identifies this migration as part of my DE6 group, which is the one I just showed you. Here is our source. Here's our getter. 3 lines. Basically saying we want to use the D6 node plugin. This is part of core. If we wanted to get all nodes from our D6 site, we would just need that line. If we want to get a specific type of node, we add the type of node here. So this is all we need for the getter. And this will this knows how to query a D6 site and get podcast nodes and all of their fields and all of their author and sticky and publish to front page stuff. So that's our getter, our source plugin. Here's our destination, even easier. we want to create nodes. Right? We hand Drupal 8 a bunch of stuff and say, hey, we want to create nodes. As long as we give it the right fields, it's going to be, all right, here's a node. We're done. Right? Can be, you want to create terms? Okay, entity term. Users, entity user. I specifically made it so this migration has no dependencies. This is the window into dependency help. But I'm simplifying things for this. And the way I'm simplifying it is when we start talking about the mapping, this is the author mapping. So let's use this as our example. The way these things work, actually, let's look at the one underneath it real quick. It's the destination field, source field. So the status property in D6 is going to map to the status base field in D8. So, we get a lot of things that are very simple, one-to-one mappings. There's no processing in these pipelines. It's getting this data from D6 and putting it in there in D8. When we look at things like this, the destination is UID. Notice I am not getting the source UID. If I was getting the source UID, I'd have to run the user migration first. I want to avoid all that for this example. And I'm basically saying, set the UID of, for all of these nodes to the default value of 1. So unfortunately, we can't just do UID : 1. Let's just the migrate system is going to look for a field called 1. That's not cool. So instead, we're going to use a plugin. This is a processing plugin that does nothing more than take this value and set that field to that value. Very simple. So it's a very simple data massage. So with that little bit of knowledge, we can parse the rest of this file. So in our process section is where we do our mapping. If you want to preserve node and version IDs, you can. For me, I usually don't want to. So for sometimes we might need to. I have them just shown here, but they're commented out. But you can map node ID and version IDs from 6 to 8 if you need to keep them for some reason. For the content type, it's the same thing. I mean, if I was doing all node types, I would just map type to type. But since I'm just doing the audio node type, and I want to change the machine name of the type from audio to podcast, it's just a default value plugin. So for the nodes I create in D8, their type is going to be podcast. The language, ultimately this boils down to that it's all going to be undefined. Title to title. All those are pretty straightforward. Fields that have subfields, like the body field, it's this type of nomenclature, or syntax, body / format. Again, the default value, I'm setting the format to my new markdown format. The value subfield of body is going to be the body field from D6. And then the only other funky one is my field audio URLs. It's going to, now remember, these are link fields. So link fields have a title and a link and some other little settings where they can. So the source for this field is field embed. And it doesn't work one-to-one because the array in D6 for how a link is saved as an array in D6 is different than how a link is saved in D8. But luckily this plugin, which comes with Drupal core, knows how to take a Drupal 6 CCK link field and map it to Drupal 8. So that's all. So granted, there is some learning to know which plugins you have available. It's actually all documented as well. But a lot of stuff is there for you. You just have to know that I need to use that. So you create this thing. /y DE6 is the audio. Gosh, I forgot the name of the module already. I think it's DE6 audio. Enable the module. This is doing our one-time. That's the name of my module. DE6 migrate. So we enable the module. This is doing the one-time sucking that config from the install into the active store. Migrate status. You can do Drush MS as well. I don't know why my All right, let me just do it this way. So here's our migration. It's idle, there's 172 nodes, none have been imported, 172 left to go. Drush, migrate, import, DE6, audio. Actually, Dev Desktop does not like this version of Drush for some reason. But you can see it has processed 172 items. They've all been created. None updated, that'd be the high water stuff. None failed, none ignored. It's done. That's fantastic. Let's go to content. And they're all there. They're all there. We look at edit. We can see our markdowns there. Our text format is marked down. And our MP3 URLs have been migrated as well. So that's awesome. One last thing and then we're done. How do we start with this? Because this is one of those missing pieces that, like, do I start at the top and start typing? How do I know what to type? So if you know you need to do a node migration, all the stuff's already in core. So you can go to core, modules, and it's hot in here. Holy cow. Node, migration templates, D6 node. This thing right here, that's the start. It looks really familiar what I just showed you, isn't it?
It's the same thing.
Well, so you copy this. This becomes the start of your new migration. You're going to have to change your ID. The driver's the same. This is where you'd add, well, I only want to migrate audio nodes, so you put in your type :audio. You comment this stuff out. You put in your custom fields. You put in your, like the UID. If you want default value, that's where you have to add your plugin for default value. You put in your custom fields, and you're good. And don't forget, probably want there's migration dependency health right there. Figure out here. So this one, for this one migration, it's dependent on 4 definitely and 3 if they're available. So yeah.
When you do an update, do you always roll back first, or do you?
No, you shouldn't have to.
You shouldn't
Shouldn't have
roll
to.
back.
With the high water stuff, you absolutely should not have to. It will look at those high water marks and only integrate in things that you want. All right, I'll leave them there if you have any more questions. So thank you very much. See you later.